Welcome to Behave Yourself, the podcast that aims to bring the science of human behavior and how you can apply it to your own life and become the happiest, healthiest, and most successful version of you.
We're two behaviour analysts with backgrounds in personal training and nutrition who've struggled in the past with confidence, weight loss, breaking promises to ourselves, and constantly trying the quick fixes.
We bring the science and show you how to apply it confidently and consistently towards your own goals and how to actually create a lifestyle change.
Behaviour analysis is the science of human behaviour, and we all engage in behaviours that either move us towards the direction of our goals or hold us back from living the life we desire.
I'm one of your hosts, Emily McRae.
And I'm your other host, Jo Wesley. Hi.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing on this Sunday?
I'm good. It's afternoon here and I am business up top, pajamas down below. But I'm good. How are you? Have you been behaving yourself this week?
I have been. My exercise goal and daily movement more or less has been so good. I know we've talked about it on past episodes about goals of minutes per week, and mine is nicely increasing throughout the weeks. And so that has been a huge win for me.
And if this is the first podcast for anyone, because you are recovering from an awful injury on your foot. So that's really exciting.
It's a big thing. I did some lower body strength stuff, nothing with weights yet. Again, as I talk about always starting slow, this is me starting back slow from really not doing anything lower body for a few months now. Actually, it's been 2.5 months. So it's really nice to get back into it. How have you been behaving yourself?
I have and I haven't. So I have been, I'm going to say this every week. I maybe need to stop saying it. I've been really, really busy. So some of my goals, like how many times I've posted on Instagram or how many times I've journaled, have slightly fallen by the wayside. But there have been things that have just been so much more important that I had to deal with. And so with those, I haven't let anyone down and I've done everything that needed to be done. And I've stuck to a few basic goals. Like I've stuck to my nutrition goals 100%, which I'm really proud of at the moment. As I said before, I'm in a fat loss phase and I've stuck to all my nutrition goals and everything is going well with that. So yeah, I have been behaving myself and been giving myself grace for not being perfect, which is
That's
good.
huge. It's hard to do, but it's really important. And you saying you've been busy, but you've still made certain goals a priority in your days, and those you've been successful. And we've talked about it in the past of it's okay that not every single goal is a priority, because then that takes away from the simple definition of a priority, but that you've done what is important to you, and the other things, it's okay that those have taken a backseat while you're busy.
Yeah. And one of my biggest values is being kind, and that has to include being kind to myself. So there's no point being kind to everyone else if I'm beating myself up for everything left, right, and center. So
right.
Yeah, I'm going to give myself a gold star anyway.
Good. You deserve it. You've been working hard. We've been hustling real hard this week. So I am excited for this one.
So today we are talking about baseline data, and we decided to talk about this because in the previous few episodes, we keep mentioning taking baseline data because typically as behavior analysts, that's where we start. So I guess helpful to start off with talking about like why data is important for the non-behavior analysts with us.
I think so too. So data in and of itself, whether it's baseline data or the data you're collecting while you're tracking your goals, this gives you that subjective measurement. Subjective measurement. These are things that, again, we're learning as we're going. Objective measurement, we are very subjective and emotional in the way that we typically look at goals. This gives us the objective measurement to really look at what is actually happening. And I've said this in the past that clients can come to me and say, I've had a horrible week of eating, or I didn't do well with my goals this week. And then we look at their data that they've collected, and it actually shows that they've been doing well with their goals, or they're on track, or they're actually doing even better. But sometimes our emotions and the way we feel about something gets in the way and clouds our judgment. So we collect data to really see and give us a clear picture of what is going on. So why we take the data, so that we can look at it and really see what's actually happening. And in baseline data, it tells us what we're doing currently.
Perfect. Yeah. So I always like a good analogy. I suppose if you had an analogy of you went to your doctor and he said, "Oh, so sorry, miss, but you have cancer," and your cancer numbers, I don't know, is it T cells or whatever they measure, is currently at 5,000. And we've taken this baseline data currently at 5,000, and we're going to put you on this awful treatment, chemotherapy, radiotherapy. It's going to make you feel awful, and we'll reassess in a month. And you come back and he says, "Yeah, I think it's going well. Your numbers might be good, but we don't know numbers because we don't take numbers." You'd be pretty annoyed that you've gone through a month of horrendous kind of treatment to not really know whether it's working or not. So data is ever so important. Know where you are to start with, and then know where you're going to, and if what you're doing is working, because we put a lot of time and effort and money and energy into what we're doing. So we have to know whether it's working or not. And that is behavior analysis. We love the data. Show me the data. That's what we say all day, every day.
Mm-hmm. And that's such an incredible example, because it's so powerful and true. You don't go back to the doctors after that type of therapy and them just to say, "Oh, well, we're not going to measure it now. We saw it in the beginning, but we're just not going to anymore." Or if they didn't even have the numbers in the beginning, right? Then how do we know that something's working or not working? So that's a really powerful example.
And slightly uncomfortably, but maybe to call out some of the professionals that I work with, when you work with kiddos with autism, how many times did you sit in a multidisciplinary meeting and hear the parents, the teachers, whoever say, "Yeah, I think Timmy's doing well. He seems to be getting better, doesn't he?" And I'd sit there, but have we got any numbers on this? Like, of course, you hope it's working because you're putting so much effort in, but let's see something like more concrete that shows us what we're putting all this time and effort and energy into is actually working.
Mm-hmm. My favorite response was, "They're always talking out," or "They're always out of their seat." And I always said always. So 8 hours out of 8 hours of the day, they were out of their seat, not listening and not following the directions. And they're like, "Oh, well, no, sometimes during, these periods." So really getting that data of, how long are they sitting in their seat for until they hit a point where they need to stand up and take a break. But if they're always out of their seat, that means 8 hours of the day, they're out of their seat. Not likely.
No.
So in terms of defining our goals based on this data that we collect, how do we start to really narrow down and figure out what is the goal that we're going to set? No matter what the behavior is, how do we start to define that?
I think that's a whole other podcast in and of itself. So I think in a couple of weeks, we've already got this planned in. We're going to talk about looking at your values and defining goals that you want to work towards. But I think a lot of us, just for the purpose of this podcast, let's focus on maybe say if you know roughly in the direction you want to go in. And this later podcast, we'll talk about what happens if you don't know the direction you're going to go in. But if you know kind of the direction you're going to go in, then think about how you're going to get there. And most of us would have a general idea. So let's say you want to get an A+ in your exams. You know that you need to spend an hour a day reading books. You need to spend maybe half an hour every evening writing that essay. Maybe you want to lose weight. You need to eat a bit less, move a bit more. Maybe you want to read more. Maybe you want to read 10 pages a day. Roughly the behaviors, but then it's deciding those behaviors and deciding exactly which ones are going to get you towards the goal and which ones maybe aren't so important.
I like that. And so when we're looking at these goals in its basic form, we need to figure out how we're going to measure to get the baseline data. And in another episode, we will go over different ways to measure the behavior, but you have to determine how you're going to measure it before you can begin collecting the baseline data. And so sometimes we measure it in numbers, in terms of how often or how long. So if you want to read 10 pages, you're going to do it by numbers of pages. How many pages have you read? Maybe it's duration of reading. And sometimes that duration is more important than just the number of pages, if, that's important to you for time frame. And for some kids, maybe it's duration and the number of pages, which gets us to our rate of behavior. So if they can read 3 pages in 10 minutes, and then we bring up their reading speed and they can do 5 pages in 10 minutes. So now they're becoming more fluent in that reading skill. And maybe it's you. I am one of those people who I struggle to read quickly when reading a hard book, but in Audible or listening to something, I can gather that information a little bit faster. So I maybe can read, quote unquote, read 20 pages in 10 minutes versus the 3 that I could read in 10 minutes if I was just reading the hardcover book.
Yeah. Super. And I think that brings up a good point. Often when I take baseline data, when I first start taking, I will choose to take a range of different data on the same behavior, because I'm not sure at the beginning which one is going to be the most informative. Because I'm a behavior analyst, they're all accurate, but maybe I could take data on the number of pages read, but actually there's only 10 words per page in this book, but there's 1,000 words per page in this book. Well, that's going to skew the data massively. And what's actually going to move you towards your goals quicker will depend. Like if I'm working with a child and I start to take data on how many requests that child makes, suddenly they might go from 0 requests per hour to 100 requests per hour. And I'll think, amazing, my job's done. But if I go and look at more carefully what the child is doing, and the only request he's making is up to dad because he lifts him up and throws him around, and poor dad has now got biceps and triceps for days, but the kid can't do a damn thing, can't kind of ask for anything else, then that's not helpful. So then I need to make sure I'm taking data on the variability of his mans or his requests. And so when I say all of that to say that when I first start taking data, I will think of all the possibilities, and I'll try to almost be a bit of a devil's advocate of how am I going to fail in my data, and make sure that I take a range so that I can then reflect after my baseline data phase to choose which ones to continue with, because you don't want to keep taking all of it. That's exhausting.
Right. And you need to figure out what is going to be the most effective data collection, because again, you don't want to take all of this data on every single behavior. And so making it as simple as possible, but also making sure you're getting the data that's going to reflect what your goal is. So we want him to ask and request for things, giving this example of the little boy. We want them to ask and request for actions, but also items and food and anything else that he may need. But can he do it with, just dad, or just a direct therapist, or with anybody and everybody, and at multiple times throughout the day? Or is it just in this like morning period with this one person? So it applies to us as adults too, of looking at vegetables. Mm-hmm. You could be getting 3 different types of vegetables in a day. Are you getting a quarter of a cup of those vegetables, or are you getting the full recommended serving? Are you getting a variety, leafy greens and tomatoes, and getting that variety in those nutrients? So there's different methods, okay, I want to get 3 cups of leafy greens and a cup of carrots, and getting that variability into the vegetables. But again, it's figuring out what's important at the time.
Yeah. And when you're getting it, like it would be better if you get this range of vegetables throughout 3 meals in a day, not just eating 7 portions for your dinner, because you're probably going to have a sore tummy if you try and do that.
Yes.
Yeah. Agreed. So then I guess choosing what measurements, choose whatever. I think I learned in school that when you're choosing whatever measurements you're choosing, you have to choose behaviors that are observable, measurable, definable. Did I remember that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So choosing things that you can definitely observe, you can definitely measure, and you can easily define for whatever that goal might be. So I guess maybe some examples might be helpful. So if I was going to choose one for, like we said, book reading already, it might be how many pages, how many minutes you spent reading. If you're reading on something like a Kindle, or you're listening to an audiobook, like you were saying, I think sometimes they have percentage of book listened to or percentage of book read. That can be quite helpful. Maybe even a satisfaction rating, which is relatively subjective. I could definitely do this for journaling, of rate of satisfaction I'm getting from journaling. And you might see that increase or change over time. So that would be for book reading. You got any other examples? Maybe.
So I know when this is, again, it's kind of going back to the reading, but I'm looking at on-task behavior too. So if you're reading, but you've got people interrupting you, or you're checking your phone, and so then you're not really into that behavior of reading and really attentive to it. And maybe that is what's decreasing your reading rate, and that is what's affecting it. So looking at how many distractions or how many times you want to check your phone during that time, and getting a more clear picture of what's going on during the action of reading, but are there people interrupting you? It's the same with if you're trying to get a report done for work. I remember at my old job working in a center, and I'd be trying to write a treatment plan, but I'd have, behavior technicians coming up and asking me questions. And so the duration that I felt like I was actually writing the treatment plan was, I've been doing this for 5 hours, but really my attentive time working on it was 2.5, and the rest was trying to get back on track and trying to write it. So looking at that data and getting a clearer picture of, how long in actual duration did it take me 3 days, but how long was I actually writing it for? 5 hours, maybe, and so that gives us that clear picture of data collection in terms of duration.
Yeah, good point.
It takes us.
I guess you could also then add in maybe accuracy of work done, or if you're reading, comprehension. I know I can read a paragraph 3 times over and still not have taken it in. So maybe comprehension after. I guess some other examples could be, like, at the moment, I'm trying to lose a bit of weight. So for fat loss, I might take my weight, but we know that the scales can be a dick sometimes. So with fat loss, you might measure weight, but also that's not necessarily accurate. So you might take measurements in inches. If you have plenty of money in the bank, you might choose to get something like a DEXA scan to see what your actual kind of fat percentage is. Don't waste money on those scales. They're a waste of money. Maybe how your clothes fit, maybe some photos of what you look like at the beginning. They would all be good different measures to take as baseline data.
For any of my clients listening that work with me, we can use the InBody Assessment, which is the DEXA scan that she was mentioning. So any of my clients that are near me, what those measurements are. We look at that internal muscle that we have, which is really cool to have for data, and we use it as baseline data. And sometimes we don't always like what the numbers say, but it gives us that, again, that baseline data, and then we reevaluate and reassess. And it's really cool to see the differences and changes.
Yeah, I think we said off air a few weeks ago, when I just started this kind of fat loss plan, I lost something crazy like 5 pounds in a week. I didn't lose 5 pounds of fat in a week. I'm 5'7" and 140 pounds. It's not possible.
Yeah.
It was water weight, because I had been eating like an idiot, and it was just bloat, it was water, and it was toilet weight that lost. But then, because I'd taken lots of other data like measurements and how my clothes fit and photos, I knew very clearly that I just needed to stick at it for months longer, not just a few days. Cool. Okay. So that's some kind of examples of different data we can take. So I guess to go on from that, you mentioned just then, you might not like the numbers. It is important to note here, baseline data can be really uncomfortable. And it has to be, like, if you've defined a behavior that you want to change it for a reason, right? And so when you take baseline data on it, the whole point of you wanting to change it is that you don't like what's currently happening. And so certainly from myself, like, did I like taking the before photos when I was obese? No, I tried to shy away from the camera. In fact, I don't have many before photos because I would avoid the camera like the plague. Did I like stepping on the scale and seeing the number? Absolutely not. Did I like my clothes that I was wearing then? Hell no. Am I glad to have them now as a comparison? 100%. Are you proud of the fact that you only read 1 page a year of a book? Probably not, but it's important to take.
Yeah, it's so important. And I think that brings us to our point of, it's okay if your baseline is 0, and sometimes it is. I have had several goals where I look at the past weeks of data and I'm like, that's basically nothing. Like I didn't do anything. If I looked at, and again, sometimes it has a significant reason as to why it's 0. And it's simply because your awareness wasn't there to bring it into increase or decrease. And that's okay that sometimes your baseline is 0. If you haven't done it, I asked a new client, again, I know I keep saying veggies, but it's me, and I have a new client that's working on vegetable increase. And I said, how many servings have you had in the past 3 days of vegetables? And she was like, honestly, like maybe 1. And that's okay. You're bringing the awareness. I could tell it was uncomfortable for her to even admit that to me, but it's okay. We need to know that. I don't want her sitting there saying, oh, well, I've been like pretty good. I've had 3 to 4 on average a day, because that's, again, we'll get into this, but that's going to change what our step 1 is for reaching her goal. That's going to change her goal. If she says she's had 3 to 4 on average a day, well, cool. We're going to try and increase it from there. But if she's only had on average 1 a day, that's going to change the way that we set our goals for her and where we start. So being honest, especially if you're working with a coach like me or Joe, being really honest with yourself, but with whoever's helping you, is so critically important, especially for baseline data.
Do you know what though? Slight tangent, gold star for you, because for her to admit that to you, you must have a really trusting relationship, and that's lovely. Like you're obviously a good coach. Well done.
Thank you.
But then also, if you are doing this by yourself without a coach, being honest with yourself, because as someone that has spent years lying to myself, it doesn't work. I could lie to myself and tell myself that I've only, that I have eaten 10 portions of vegetables and I haven't eaten those 3 bars of chocolate for weeks, but it's a lie. And I will see no change in my data. So being honest with yourself, because goodness knows if you put your plan in place and it works, you'll be really glad you did. Because if you graph your data over time, seeing a flat line of data isn't particularly exciting, but to be able to see your data go down or go up from a start point to an end point and see a massive change is really exciting.
I love it.
Okay.
It's so exciting. So once we've got our baseline, what else can we use that data for?
Well, as I just kind of alluded to, you have to graph it. A huge part of behavior analysis is that we use visual analysis. Go back to kind of primary school or elementary school maths, get yourself a simple x-axis, y-axis graph and plot it on a graph. And have a look at what it looks like. It's well known that if you start tracking your own data, you're quite likely to start changing your behaviors just for the simple fact that you're tracking. So it's okay if you see a bit of a wobble in a baseline data. Ideally, we'd like to get some stable baseline data before we put an intervention in place. But if it's starting to move in the direction that you're hoping that it will move, it's probably because you're changing your behavior for the better.
Mm-hmm. And pardon?
Would you agree?
I do. And I think it leads us, and we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but how beginning to collect data can really start to just shift the behavior in the direction that you want without even putting in any interventions or anything in place. It's just simply starting to collect it. And it's, again, just bringing that awareness to it. If we're working with our kids, that doesn't necessarily occur because they're not aware of the data collection. Sometimes it's our presence that changes the behavior, but not necessarily us collecting the data. But when you're collecting it on yourself, your behaviors are likely to change as you begin to collect that data.
Yeah. So you've taken the baseline data, you've decided on the kind of change that you want to make. Then what? Then
we determine, that's probably gonna be real loud. My charger fell. Mm-hmm. So then we can start to implement what is our next step of our goal. Where can we go from here? We take averages, or we look at, is this, the average of the numbers of servings or the average duration, or getting just where we're at this current level of behavior when responding. And then we can set our goal from there. And we can also look at what's been occurring when we're collecting that data, what's been occurring before and after that might be maintaining that behavior. That might be the reason that the behaviors are occurring, we talk about, collecting the data and figuring out why these behaviors are occurring. We may start to see that in the baseline data and get a clearer picture. And then this helps us determine how we're going to actually implement the intervention of increasing or decreasing the current behavior. Yeah. So what do you typically see as something that occurs either before or after the behavior for your journaling? Because I know that's been something that you've been working on increasing, but when you took that data, did you get anything that you saw in the baseline data for journaling that affected
my baseline was 0. I do not like to journal. Mm-hmm. And I get this is a longer story entirely, but when I'm particularly anxious, I can have maybe 2 or 3 anxiety attacks a day, a lot of anxious thoughts, a lot of mindless actions to try and distract myself from what's really going on in my head. And then I give myself a stern talking to and realize that I need to actually acknowledge those thoughts and process them and deal with them, which is then I come back to journaling. And then journaling really helps that. And I start to feel better. And then I come back to the thought of, oh, I don't really have time for it. And I don't really enjoy it. And so, the thoughts beforehand of, I have better things to do than this journaling, but I need to do it because if I don't, I might get very anxious again. So those are very much the things I've noticed before. And I don't feel like I've quite found the right thing to pair with it. So also the thoughts of, well, if I just go and get my favorite drink and if I light a candle, then maybe I'll like this journaling better. But I don't think I've quite found the right thing because I still don't like it.
I'm on the train with you on that one. I've tried it and stopped it. I haven't committed to it 100%, but journaling is a really challenging thing for me as well that I haven't implemented and I don't know, maybe it's not important or valuable to me. And that's the thing too, that I've been trying to work on is this just something that I feel like I should be doing because it's so recommended? Or is it just something that's not me? Maybe it's talking it out and vocalizing it because I like verbal communication so much more than written. So maybe it's not as important to you, but you have to see what is the effect on the behaviors. So maybe it would be very valuable for me to journal.
And it is very valuable for me in that I know that when I consistently journal, I have fewer panic attacks. Mm-hmm. I know that it really is good for me. And actually, I'm such a hypocrite because I might talk to my clients about exercising more or eating in a particular way. And the same with exercise, like, do you ever start a workout thinking, yippee, this is my favorite? No. But by the time you get to the end, are you in a much better headspace? Yes. The same with journaling. I close my journal like, that was a good thing to do. Well done, me. And I hate starting it. So I just need to parent myself a little, coach myself a little, and just start doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we have the baseline data. We've thought about all the different variables. We've thought about the kind of data we're taking. And then
we start to analyze it because that is what we do as behavior analysts. We start to look at it. Where is the behavior going and how do we need to look at the data in terms of what your goal is and where you're currently at versus where you need to go next. And it's hard. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be enjoyable. I say hard in the sense of emotionally sometimes hard, not in the sense of looking at the data, but it's hard to look at and see, okay, this is where I'm at. Where do we go next with this?
Yeah.
And then we start to make some changes, add in some interventions, and you start to change your behavior slowly.
Yeah. And if you're not sure about what to do to change the behavior, that age-old phrase of Google that stuff. Like you can Google anything. If you want to make a change to your reading behaviors, your eating behaviors, whatever, Google that. There's so many different resources out there of people who will make suggestions, and try it. And it might work for you and it might not.
You can also reach out to us too if you guys have anything specific that you hear and you're not 100% sure
about journaling.
Unless it's about journaling, then I don't know. But you can always reach out to us And we've had several clients who've worked on lots of different behaviors, and ask us, and and I'm sure if you have that question, other listeners have that similar question, and we can always chat about it on future episodes for you guys.
For sure. So next week, we're going to go into different methods to take data, whether you might be a pencil, paper kind of person, or whether you are more iPhone, Android friendly. And we'll go through all the different ways of taking data and go more into the exact types of data, which is exciting.
Yes. Love it. All the data. All righty. So thank you guys so much for listening. Please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We are on all of the big major podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Deezer, Buzzsprout, anywhere you get your podcasts, they're getting us all on there. So we are so grateful if you could leave us a review, and please share this with anyone that you know in your orbit of people that you care about, because I'm sure they have behaviors that they want to change too.
Agreed. And if you have anything that you'd like us to cover or any questions, do get in touch. If you'd like to hear more from either of us, you can head to our Instagram pages. Emily is at emily.a.mcrae. McRae is MACRAE. And for more from me, head to my Instagram, The Behaviour Lady. And remember, I'm from the UK, so behaviour is spelled with a U. As always, the quick disclaimer, we're both behaviour analysts, but we're not your behaviour analysts. And we're both qualified in our respective fields, but this podcast is for education and information sharing only and shouldn't be taken as personal, medical, or behavioural advice or services.
Wonderful. We look forward to talking to you guys soon.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.